Happy 60th anniversary, Star Trek. Anyway, yes, coming up in September. It's only approaching August. So this is Calcat the Calcaster, and this is Strange New Worlds, Episode 2, Season 4, Episode 2. Ghost Ship, basically. Ghost Ship was a Diane Carey novel. One of the first Next Generation novels in 1988, when I was 18. Beginning of my career in Starfleet Academy. Almost. This episode is actually called The Griffin Incident. But I can't take the credit for this one as a Cillian story because it's TNG. And they did a Strange New Worlds episode of it. Of the TNG episode. I don't know if they did specifically, but it seems a lot like it. They did a couple of other episodes about ghost ship, possessor, alien things, and zombies and stuff before. And yes, last year, we did a whole 3-part, I guess you counted 4-part season, zombies in Star Trek, zombie LARPing crew and Starship Locations. Similar idea. And of course, the premiere of our series was the companion obsession, in which we had another possessor alien thing shows up in a different way to fight some bad guy ones. So that was different. So we've done this before. But yeah, this episode's not one of ours though. It's Ghost Ship. It's Diane Carey's Ghost Ship. But with Strange Worlds. The unsold Star Trek script that she made into a novel. The first TNG novel, actually, 1988. July of 88. So that's almost 40 years ago. Anyway, so it's almost 40 years ago. Yeah, July of 88 was July of 2026 now, so 38 years ago. Yeah, so we have, it would have been like, almost 40 years. Next Generation will be 40 in 2027. It's not quite 40 yet. In this new spin-off era, beginning with Discovery in 2017, is not like the one in 2009. It goes on, it does its own thing. But it also was just a year advanced of the other, the anniversary, the 40th anniversary. So, anyway, this story is they use the Griffin, which is the ship from the Anne McCraffy ship, the Griffin. The Mercedes Lackey ship, the Griffin. Probably has a lot of other backstory, but I've heard of it before. It's been around. It's another. Seems to be Constitution class. Yeah, and interestingly enough, that ship is one of the fan film ships from the series that we did as well. It's one of them. Because see, the Chimera from 2388 is named after the Phoenix class starship line from the 2380s, and one of them is the Griffin. One of them is the Medusa, that's the Mary Sue, and the Griffin, and the Chimera, the Phoenix, of course the Pathfinder ship, and the Chimera. After chimeric creatures of mythology. There's probably a Pegasus in there too, and not of the Next Gen. So we have all these other ships in the fan film lexicon that doesn't have anything to do with anything, except other than, it's a coincidence. Yeah, it totally is a coincidence. Also, never split up your landing party in a horror movie. About half of Star Trek episodes generally go into the horror genre. It's a sci-fi, fantasy, horror, and sci-fi genre. This is a horror one, on a par with some of the TNG ones and some of the classic ones. They find a ghost ship, basically. I thought maybe they were going to do the Turnabout Intruder thing. They kind of do. They kind of hit at it. The Turnabout Intruder was the final episode of the classic Trek, and in that one, a possessor alien lady is a captain, and she takes over Kirk's mind, and she can't be a captain. She wanted to be a captain, and they made this weird sexist remark that women can't be captains, because in the Navy at that point they couldn't be. It was sort of a Navy, sort of a Yeah. But since then it's been retconned. They could have retconned it here a little bit and said, like, no, it's not all women. It's just that particular woman is nuts, so we didn't want her to be. They kind of addressed that in Strange New Worlds a few times. It's like, yeah, women can totally be a captain. Just that particular lady can't be a captain. That's kind of what's going on here. We got this Henderson Hickson, who has escaped, and she apparently took out the crew. They were stranded out in space, and there was this other. The ship is messed up, and it's all they redressed the ship set to look older, so that they could do a crossover later on. That we won't get into yet. But yes, the redressed chipset thing, whatever. And we have they used some of those green screen panel things from like the green lettering from back in. It's kind of tied into the Star Trek, Abrams Star Trek movies. They found that ship, the Franklin, actually. But yes, it's because it's named after Frank Lynn, the director's father, Frank, not after Franklin. Anyway, so you have but that was 2016 in there. Yeah, we don't go to the movies. Okay, so you have your ghost ship. You have La'an and Spock and Kirk going to shuttle out to the ship. You have the ghosts trying to take them over. Spock gets locked in sick bay, and a ghost of T'Pring is there. It's clearly a ghost, and it's trying to like a negative energy thing, whatever. They call it negative energy, but it would be negative ions or something. But why don't they just say ectoplasm? They did the Ghostbusters. They never split up your team. They split it up. And clearly the director also loved those Backrooms shorts that became the movie Backrooms and Possession, that other movie. So they're like, but this was created like, and filmed and everything a year ago, almost a year ago. So to go out as this season, and then they filmed the final season after that. So really, they were aware of less than a year ago. So they were aware of the beginning of our zombie story arc, and they made an episode. The beginning of it, yeah. They're like, oh yeah, the Cal-Cat people are doing this. Well, let's do that. Let's do it. Let's do one for like the Academy series didn't really go there, but yeah. So they have them on the ship, and they probably didn't. But anyway, they have them on the ship, but they figure like, okay, these spooky things are happening. La'an's apparently a part zombie from the zombie troupe people. Also note that there are remarkable similarities to that story, and that the Zabulveda is a ship from several years earlier, 30 years earlier in the story, not 9 like in this one. But there's a LARPing troupe, and they're like Kirks and Spocks and stuff because it's KS. Never heard of Spurk. Don't know what that new version of it is. It's Kirk and Spock. That's what it's called. That's what it is. It's shipping. It's a new thing over there and across the pond. It's not. Anyway, so we have a Kirk and Spock episode here. We have Kirk pining for his wife, and baby David is born, apparently, at this point. Well, that would make sense. It's been a year. That would set this episode in 2162, 63 is around there, maybe 63, 2263, which would be real close to the finale of the show, anyway. That's all that's hooked up. They hint at other weird stuff that's later on that they wouldn't know. The ghosts seem to know, like David's or fate, but maybe they're just saying that to be scary. Ooh, ghosts. Yeah, there's a ghost at one point. Clearly, the psychological damage from the ghosts that are able to possess them would mess them all up for like days, I would think, and they wouldn't just like, oh, we saved you. Yeah, and they didn't kill. There's a transporter buffer scene. It's reminiscent of the motion picture. And yeah, it was in the trailers. That actually was. That didn't actually happen. It was part of the ghosts in their head. Yeah. So the ghosts manifest them being saved, and then crazy stuff happens to the captain and the commander and Uhura and the pilot really doesn't get trapped in the transporter. That was the ghosts manifest that. It wasn't. She didn't get trapped in the transporter. But yeah, so they do reference stuff that hasn't happened yet and beam them into themselves. So that was just a spooky preview thing, and the captain cuts his fingers off. That's a scene from in the ghost image. The ghosts trap one of them, and the captain or Spock goes crazy, and Spock is going nuts and sees the captain cutting his own fingers off. That's from something. I think like The Grudge or something. Something like that. Yeah, they but yeah, there's some gore in this. Yeah. So yeah, there's gore in this, and at one point a version of Sam is there. Clearly, the crew is not being rescued at this point. It was pretty obvious that they were shot and lit in a way that it was like, okay, they're not really there with Spock and Lon and Kirk. They're not being rescued. This is fake. They're not being rescued. They're haven't been rescued yet. So all that other stuff that happens to them as they go crazy and start to see stuff, and it's all. I liked how it's an illusion. I liked how the engineering room looks like the OG engineering room from the they lit it red, so it looks like the warp thing in the back. Yeah, and often on the designs of the warp core, they often show that vertical warp core thing incorrectly as being in the neck of the saucer section, just because they draw it a little too tall, even in the motion picture. But really, it's just 2.5, 3 levels. It's behind the shuttle bay. It's in the engineering hull. It's not in the saucer section. That's the impulse deck up there, and then there's the turbo lift down. There's no room for it. It's not in there. It's not in the neck of the ship. No, it's in the engine room. It's right behind the shuttle bay. Right where the engines come together, it comes down. On a classic ship, it's just kind of going this way. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah. So horror story. I'm assuming the director of this was a horror director, directed horror stuff, and do a horror movie. This particular director of photography as well does understand the dark lighting and uses it to effect in full effect in the story, and does understand line of sight. So very rarely does he screw up the line of sight, and there's no blurry foreground or background guys, at least not unintentionally. If he did it was intentional. This guy knows how to frame a Star Trek episode in the dim light stuff. I think they filtered it, is what they did. It looks like they filtered some of it down to dimmer. They could have addressed more their damage after they've been possessed. I was thinking that the lady is the Turnabout Intruder lady, and that she'll show up later but probably not. They kind of imply the Reject thing too, which is a nod to 2 years ago when they had the Reject creature get defeated by Charlie X and show up as a con. So apparently they've been definitely watching my stuff. But it was Charlie X playing a con figure, because I didn't have a Charlie X figure, and he's older now. He's like 40 years older. So yeah, he's 100 years older at this point, but he's a demigod, so he shows up. It also had a giant Teddy Ruxpin spaceship in it, so that they didn't do, but but yeah. But yeah, it had the Charlie X and the Red Jack in it. Because you can't defeat the entity or whatever it is. Entity things. So are they Yeah, so they have to escape the ghosts. One of them effectively kills Sam. But obviously it's at that point so ridiculous that in terms of what they're doing, that if you haven't gotten it by then, okay, no one's actually there. They're not being rescued. Yeah, they're just, the ghosts are messing with their minds. Yeah, at one point the evil version of T'Pring wants to remove his heart and stuff, Spock's heart and stuff. Does beg the question that I begged earlier: if Spock is going around like shagging like Lon and another lady, well, now he's not going to want Lon, but all these other crewmen, why would he have Pon farr later on during the original Star Trek? I realize they didn't film it like that because they kind of implied that the Pon farr is every 7 years, like they're horny and they have to mate, which means that for those 6 years that they're not, they shouldn't be mating. They should be celibate. That would make that drive more crazy. Yeah, so they should be celibate. Although later KS stories and later novel stories have said, no, they can't be celibate that whole time. It would drive them insane. But no, that was only in the novels. And the novels are kind of pseudo-canon. Extended universe is not a like Ghost Ship here that they really borrowed from. Ghost Ship was, yeah, they find a derelict starship. They go on the starship and it starts to drive them mad and put things in their minds. Picard and Worf and Data and stuff. It doesn't affect Data so much because he's a robot. But yeah, and they really didn't have the characters fleshed out either because it was a novel. It was written to tie in with the show. And so it's like first season information that they had to write with. And Diane Carey there. Probably no relation to the Careys that used to be in the roommates. Probably not. Kind of cool as she was though. Them kind of neat. Yeah. I never. Well, maybe his cousin was in fact a Star Trek writer, which would be cool. He never said she wasn't. It was real. Oh yeah, Diane Carey. Yeah, she wrote Star Trek novels. Yeah, she wrote a couple of them. He didn't say she wasn't. So maybe she was. And there was an Elizabeth Brown in Wink of an Eye. A classic Trek with an E. A cousin, distant cousin. Anyway, so yeah. But yeah, okay, we have a creepy horror story. They're rambling on about other stuff because it reminds me of other stuff. It just does. But it reminds me more of Ghost Ship and the zombie stuff. Well, the zombie stuff pops in, or part of you. That scene where they're all gathered in engineering and they scare Leon is right out of my story from a year ago. Right out of it. It even looked the same. Like, guys, come on. The only way that works is, unlike Mike Melt, I pitched. No. From years ago, 10 years ago, that guy, he didn't pitch, I did. No, I didn't. But sure seems like it, though. Yeah. Certainly didn't pitch last week's episode. I wouldn't have gotten away with that one. Yeah, they do ever ask Kirk and David and Carol Marcus. They do call her something else, though. Last name is not Marcus, and interestingly enough, they sort of, yeah, I think they said her last name was different. It's odd. Yeah. It's supposed to be Carol Marcus. Yeah, so yeah, they had a kid, so she should technically be Carol Kirk. But yeah, but they do address that. The story, she's not in the episode. They do something else. There's why would they send? I guess they sent his vision of Sam Kirk to save him because Kirk was thinking of that. So. But they wouldn't have, and they wouldn't have sent. Why am I blanking on the Ortegas? Ortegas was not lost in the transporter. It was a she wasn't lost in the transporter. Yeah, that was actually. It was a fake. That was imagined. Lon imagined that whole scene. Yeah, so. And Spock nipped his own ears off. Was going to stab himself. Excellent. That's kind of nuts. But yeah, he was because the ghost was messing with him. The ghost spring. And then they kind of imply after they get rescued that they didn't like her anyway, but the ghost wasn't her. The ghost was in his the ghosts were ghost people were messing with him. This is not the original. This is not the other T'Pring at all. So for them to say like, oh yeah, of course that was actually someone rescuing him. So that was in his mind when she wasn't rescuing him yet. She wasn't there. So that character, number one, didn't say that to Spock. Oh, I didn't like her anyway. It was the ghost version of her that said it. The ghost. Yeah, ghosts are real on that planet. Well, I guess they implied that the ghosts weren't ghosts. They were like energy beings that were messing around on the ship. These ghost energy plasma, ectoplasmic beings. They're ghosts. But yes, I would imply that ghosts are real. Well, if they really wanted to make that cheesy, they would have cast Bill Murray in there somewhere. But yes. So yeah, Turnabout Intruder meets the Ghost Lady, meets Ghost Ship, meets a number of other things. But yeah, they haven't done a lot of Ghost Ship episodes. I've done a few. But yeah, or taking over the crew stories, done that too. A conundrum kind of thing. Yeah, and clearly Leon needs to. I hope they don't do something dumb and turn her into Khan at the end and then put her on the sleeper ship, because that'd be dumb. Doesn't make any sense. Yeah, don't do that. So that's that would also be anti-trans and mean. They shouldn't do that. She's not supposed to be a Khan. That whole other universe with the later Khan and the later eugenics wars makes no sense. It doesn't fit in the canon or the timeline. Clearly, this new show is spin-off Discovery is set in another timeline. So really, they don't need to do what the other canon did. And rumors about a new Star Trek movie taking place on a completely other ship, which is probably for the best that they do a completely other ship and crew. They can do their own thing. Wanted to do that for years, but yeah, the last time they really tried to do that, it was Enterprise, and all that went. But yeah, but that was a prequel. Don't do prequels. No. Now, this didn't need to be a prequel. They didn't need this series. They could have had it be a different crew later on, some other time period. Didn't have to do all that stuff. Didn't have to do the lore stuff. But Starship Locations also does the lore stuff. So, yeah. So that's my, I guess, roundabout review of a horror story that really technically is just a basic horror story premise thing. Clearly inspired more so by current movies and memes than Ghost Ship. I'm sure they didn't actually read the book. They just did a ghost story on the ship. But yeah, the injuries and things that happened to them and the zombies is a reminiscent of a ghost, spooky story. Yeah, so yeah, but I don't know how Babs, the doctor guy, got into Hollywood with such a quiet voice like this, very quiet. I'm imagining he didn't have a quiet voice originally, and he got injured, so he's got a quiet voice now. That'd be my guess. I don't know. I haven't looked it up. The guy that plays Dr. Mbenga doesn't really sound like Dr. Mbenga from TOS. None of them really act like the people from TOS. Oh yeah, and I like the longer hair on the Nurse Chapel, which they can then put up in a bun. Because they got to do the whole thing. But that's later. But yes, Yeah. I did not pitch. Yeah. But yes. Spa. All he needs to do is a Kirk Spock. Like he needs to dream about making out with Kirk. You're the last mate for me, Jim. Very well, Mr. Spock. You may kiss me on the lips. No, they're not going to do that. That would be a chaos story. No. So, not Spork. So yeah, Ghost Ship. The Griffin incident. On an ancestor of the Starship Griffin from Starship Chimera from the 2000s. An ancestor of that ship. Okay. The Griffin. And yeah.